There is no force more powerful than a woman determined to rise. A chapter on regrets is probably a strange place to start, but I'm in a reflective mood, and having been in the business so long, it's a question I am asked quite frequently. Do you have any regrets, Kate? Or do you regret marrying, insert name here? Or do you regret your 500 boob job? So I thought I'd start here and see where it takes me. I think my first reaction is always, no, I don't have any regrets. You can't change the past, so why would you regret anything? Where does that even get you? But then I thought about it some more and realised it's probably a bit trickier to answer truthfully. Regrets are a funny thing. On the one hand, I get that you can regret something you've done, or someone you've been with, or a situation you've been in. But often regrets are woven with elements of success and pride. Do I regret running the London Marathon in 2009? Well, yeah, I do, because I had just lost my baby at 16 weeks. So yes, I do. It was dangerous and my body was not able to cope with the overwhelming trauma it was under while I was trying to force it to get me to 26.2 miles. It hadn't even been 24 hours and my mind was just all over the place. I was bleeding during the race and my knee was giving me agony. And then you have all the emotional pain that goes with that. All the people I thought I just can't let them down. And so I had to put on the bravest face I could muster and just carry on, because that's what I do. Not long after that, Pete and I split up. I so regret not speaking up more when the media started playing us off against each other. You could buy Team Kate or Team Pete t-shirts and hats. People made a fortune from a devastating time in my life. There was no team. And it wasn't a game. It was a really sad situation. It was a marriage breakup, and yet it was treated with mockery and amusement by the press. And sadly, also by people that I trusted who saw me at the breaking point, and despite that, continued over and over again to keep pushing me down. I'll probably regret saying this stuff later on, but I've got to an age where I think to myself, fuck it. I need to plainly and clearly tell you all how certain events have affected me. This is very much my story to tell and my feelings, so yeah, fuck it. For so many years, stuff has been said about me from that time that were hurtful lies. People lapped it up, and I was easily put into the bad guy category because I continued to work and earn money and didn't sit around sobbing that my marriage was over. And that's because I love my job and I love being in front of the camera. And, if I could go right back to the beginning of Page 3 Days and the loaded mag shoots and the FHM spreads, I would. Life was so simple back then. Life was easy. You did a job, you got paid. It was done. But after Pete, my God, did the tide turn against me. And people who knew me saw me at breaking point from all the pressure. There was no let up from that point. There didn't seem to be anything positive that was written about me. It was just easy to make me out to be a villain. But I feel I've gone off on a bit of a tangent here. I was actually talking about the regrets and the marathon. So yes, in the answer to whether in 30 years in the industry I have regrets, I do. I do regret putting my body through a gruelling marathon, but I won't ever regret raising all that money we did for the charity and for the awareness of Harvey's condition. And we ended up buying a minibus for the school with the money that I got. And that's how I justify a lot of things that have happened to me. There are a number of regretful scenarios that hold both positive and negative aspects. I definitely regret some of the men I have been in relationships with, but ultimately, they have made me who I am today. I think, if I'm going to be honest, I regret letting myself be treated the way I did by men. I know I'm a good mother, and I won't stop fighting for my children. My children are everything to me, and I regret not stopping this witch hunt before it began. But more on that later. I can't help the way I am. Again, I make no apology for that. I am honest and I would tell people how it is, and believe me, that's got me into trouble over the years. But the problem with that is, right now, I am going through the toughest time I've ever been through and fighting every day to make sure my children are okay, and yet I'm being judged by people who have read God knows what in the papers, magazines or online. Oh, that Katie Price, isn't she awful? Isn't she always drunk and getting her tits out? She must be a bad mum. And you know what? I don't blame them. I don't blame them that they have read stuff about me and formed an opinion. We all do it, don't we? You must have read countless stories about me over the years and rolled your eyes in disgust. But you have to remember, this is my life. And in my life, whatever I do, it ends up being played out in the public eye because I sell magazines. I fill a space online. I create a debate. I regret that people see me as something completely different to who I am, but that often leads to some of my happiest moments. When I meet people, they're like, "Oh, you're actually quite nice. You're normal." Yeah, I am. I'm a woman that has survived in this industry that is meant to destroy you. And there were occasions when it nearly did, when I nearly let it. So that's another regret. I suppose that I didn't seek help in the right way with the right people, but more on that later. My therapy and my journey through darkness is one that I hope will help a lot of people. One of my biggest regrets is that I seem to have lost the female solidarity that I built up when I first had children and was a working mum, trying my best in a difficult situation. I know there was a huge group of women who supported me, who got what I was trying to do, and who enjoyed working, like I do, and enjoyed being a mother, and who have also been hurt by men or situations in their lives. The key difference between us, though, is that my life is played out in the press, and therefore twisted and manipulated to create a false narrative that has no bearing on my real life. You should see my life on a normal day. My house is noisy, it's chaotic. It's a house full of children and pets and people coming and going all the time. But my children are happy, they are looked after and they are loved. And I'll bet there's mums out there who are the same, who'll be thinking, well, my house isn't exactly spotless, or is it wine o'clock yet? Or is it too early to put the children to bed because I'm exhausted? Or wouldn't it be nice to have some adult time once in a while? Am I right? You all can think it. How? You can say it. You can make it a fucking post on social media and you'll have everyone come out and say, "Yep, I hear you," or "Gin being poured as we speak," and I bet you don't get judged. But me, I don't get to say that because as soon as I do, I get labelled. I'm a drunk, I'm a bad mum, and I have a revolving front door of men coming in and out all the time. Motherhood is hard, yet I'd bet if you say you are struggling, I'm sure there'll be people lining up, trying to help you. If I struggle, it's just another story in the paper about how awful I am, and that does get to you after a while. Sometimes it's hard to keep quiet. But I often do keep quiet, and some of the biggest regrets I have in my life are things that I didn't say, that were left unsaid for one reason or another. When I was in a London hospital after breaking my feet, I regret that I didn't see any of the messages that my friend and reality star Nikki Graham left for me in 2021. I had no idea she was on the floor above me, on the anorexic ward, reaching out to me and asking me to come up and see her. But I never saw these messages because I wasn't in the right frame of mind to check my phone like I normally do. She must have thought I was ignoring her, when I actually wasn't. She died not long after that, and that's really hard to live with because I'm always there for my friends and if they need me, but I never got to tell her that I wasn't ignoring her. I just didn't see the messages. I still have them on my phone and sometimes go back and read them, and it breaks my heart that I never saw her or acknowledged her. I also regret that I never got to talk to Caroline Flack before she died. She was working with a mutual friend in America and had messaged me because she was being hounded by the press and wanted advice on how to deal with them. A lot of the stuff they were writing about her was hurtful and not true, and she was upset. She knew I was no stranger to that sort of publicity and had been dealing with negative press for years. But she wasn't used to it. She was fragile and had built a successful career on being a professional and popular primetime TV presenter who everyone liked and respected. She wanted to meet up so we could have a proper conversation about it, and we agreed that when she was back from the US, we'd get together. But we never got to have that catch-up because she committed suicide only a few weeks later. I have nothing more to say on that other than what a complete waste of a beautiful life. It did take me a while to process that she was gone, but I knew from her messages how hard she was finding the press intrusion. I'm not saying that, had we met up and had a chat, anything would have changed. I know our situations were very different, and I've probably become immune to things that can break other people very easily and very quickly. But I do think I would have been a good person to talk to. I have a lot of empathy, and even though it might not have made any difference whatsoever, I would have tried. And I regret that I never got the chance to try. I recently watched the Amy Winehouse film, and it affected me more than I thought it would. I could see everything she went through in terms of my own life and the way the cameras would follow me and be in my face as I walked up the road. To have them constantly after you, in front of you, next to you. To have the fear that every time you went out, someone is always watching. I know what it's like to have controlling people around you, making sure you only reveal certain things at certain times or act in a certain way. Don't hold hands, save it for a photo shoot, or don't kiss now, wait for the interview. The control to create a certain image has been pretty relentless throughout my entire career and relationships. I've been told never to watch the Caroline Flack or Britney Spears documentaries because their lives are so similar to mine. I've been told not to protect my own mental well-being, but honestly, I imagine what they'd show me about what those poor women went through is not going to shock me in the same way that it might shock you, because it's reality, and I know that very well. It might seem odd to say this, but one of the biggest regrets I've had in my 30 years in the business is actually Eurovision. I've spoken about this before. This isn't something new, but fuck me, what was I thinking? I still remember it clearly. Being in that studio, in my pink jumpsuit, performing for the chance to be on Eurovision entry in 2005. I hated the song and I hated the costume, but I'd been told if I took part, I would get a Sony recording deal out of it. Couldn't sing the song then, and I couldn't even sing it now, even if I tried. I was 7 months pregnant too, so I'm sure that's a big part of why I didn't win. That said, Javine beat me by only 1% of the vote. It was all such a shit show, and I was mocked hideously afterwards. I suppose I could try and turn this regret into a positive, because as I didn't win, I therefore didn't go on to represent the UK and get the new pois in front of the whole world. Although I think Javine maybe got 18 points in total and came second to last, so that's not the worst. But where is she now? Perhaps it was a good thing I didn't get that gig. But yes, that is one of my biggest regrets, and no matter how hard I try, I just can't turn it into a positive unless, ding ding, I revamp my music career. Do I regret any of my boob jobs? And if I had £1 for every time someone asked me that, the answer is no, I don't. I am the biggest I've ever been at the moment. I am 2,500cc, and that's the biggest I will ever go. I know 2,500cc doesn't make a lot of sense to most people, but that's me. I would probably want to go smaller before I finish writing this book because I like to change things. Or maybe not. The only surgery I regret having is liposuction before I had my first boob job. It's a wonder that I ever had anything done to my body ever again after having that because it was so fucking painful. And I'm not sure why I had it done. I was so young and tiny, But it was a bit of a gimmick at the time, wasn't it? Everyone seemed to like the idea of having fat sucked out of them. I only had it because I couldn't be bothered to go to the gym. As I was quite skinny, I'm not sure I should have even gone through with it. All I remember is that my legs were black and blue and they started oozing. When I got in the bath, oh my God, the pain was absolutely bloody awful. I can't remember how much it cost. It would have been a lot more than a gym session, that's for sure. Although you'll be listening to that and wincing, and yet I'm still sat here thinking, I need more lipo. My arms are a bit flabby. Maybe I'll have more. It's just who I am. And hopefully you'll understand why that is after listening to this book. The liposuction, having my nose done, are my surgery regrets. I liked my nose before, and I didn't even want it done. But one surgery I had when I was in America, the surgeons would put me under for my boob job, and they said they would do it at the same time. It was just another thing to do, kill two birds, as it were, and so I said yes. I do miss my old nose though. If I had it in a cupboard, I'd probably get it back out every now and again and wear it. I'm nuts. But I don't spend a lot of time worrying about that. You can't. What's done is done. I don't have any major words or wisdom when it comes to surgery, if that's what you're waiting for. Sorry, I don't want to be a surgical role model for anyone. I do what I do for me and me alone. I wouldn't say to people to have or not have surgery, although I do seem to get a lot of people telling me what I should and shouldn't do. But as it's such a personal choice, I know the reasons for me having it, which I'll talk about more in another chapter. The only thing I would say is that lots of people I know who have had boob jobs have regretted not going bigger from the very first time. It's like when you get a haircut. You only take a little bit off at first because you can't take more off later. Well, with a boob job, people often wish they had gone bigger the first time so they wouldn't have to have another operation. When I took my implants out completely after I was in Big Brother in 2015, I thought my boobs would look disgusting and wrinkly and empty, like empty tea bags. But they surprised me. They looked all right, actually. That said, would I ever go back to not having anything? Never. I know I spoke about it at the time, being a reset, and even though my boobs didn't look like wrinkly old tea bags, I never wanted to go back to being flat-chested. When I look at the early photos of me in my modelling days, I think I look rank. Sad, isn't it? People tell me how beautiful I looked, but all I think is, how I ever got a modelling deal and got onto page 3 from looking like that, I've got no idea. Thinking back to my early days of modelling, which was some of my best days of my life, it also made me think of another major regret. I wish I knew then what I know now about copyrights on photos and having ownership of them. When I went out to America to be in Playboy in 2002, photos of me were plastered on the side of New York taxis advertising strip clubs. I had no say over where my photos were used then, and I wish I had been told, or worked out myself, that having ownership over your image is hugely important. I didn't agree to be on the side of a taxi advertising a strip club I hadn't even visited. Although, yes, I'd admit, I think it's pretty cool. But it's been a lifetime of lessons from then on. I stayed in the Playboy Mansion for 6 weeks, and there were lots of things I saw in those days. There was so much action, but like I've said before, I didn't shag him. Hugh Hefner, that is. That'd be like shagging my granddad. No disrespect, but it was still a brilliant time. I was the first English girl doing Playboy, after all, so it was a big deal. I turned up at the mansion and I remember thinking, what the fuck? I was greeted by all these girls with their American accents who seemed fascinated by my boobs. Me and Hef, we'd go out and tour around America promoting that I was on the cover of Playboy. Oh my God, those days were just, well, I look back and think, did all that happen? Movie nights at the mansion when all the people would come over and watch films. Hugh was actually a really nice guy. He thought I was wild. I suppose I was pretty different to everyone else. Well, I didn't sleep my way up any ladder, that's for sure. Hold on, Jet's just come into the kitchen and asked me why I'm smiling to myself. He'd probably find it amusing to hear I was on the side of a famous yellow cab, but then again, probably not. I'm just his mum to him. I want to cuddle, and in a typical 10-year-old boy fashion, he doesn't want to be mauled by his mum and doesn't understand why I need to have these snuggles and kisses. But he indulges me, and I love that. I can't be doing too badly as a mum, can I? I have stopped reacting to things on Instagram, as I'm always in trouble after I do. I think a lot of my previous snipes or comments were due to my impulsiveness, my ADHD behaviours where I reacted without thinking or taking a moment. See, I am learning, or I am getting less reactive in my old age.